My name's Andy Rossi. I'm the technical director and one of the partners at the Scenery, which is a small web design agency here in town. I think we're about to hit our 4th birthday, which is super cool. Never thought that I would help create a company before, so yay. And we work a lot in products. Digital products are mostly our clients, and we develop marketing sites for them, but we've also worked within the product itself. So we would combine with their teams and help build out features, or even small things like build a lot of React components. And that is the basis for what I'm going to be talking about. I'll try to make it a lightning talk. I'll just fly through a lot of these. But there's a lot of design in here, not just development. And Ether is a design system starter kit. And it came from, well, let's start the story. Hello. History.
Hi, Andy.
Hello. So once upon a time, this is one of our first clients when we started up. They asked us to build a white label design system. And this, we had no idea really what we were doing yet, because design systems were new. Everyone wanted one. And we're like, sure, we can do that. We also want your work, and we like you a lot. So we want to help you out. What do you mean by white labeled? And basically like, oh, well, we're a product that sells to other products. And basically what we want is a design system that is infinitely themable for an unknown amount of customers. So, wow. We'll figure it out. Well, it ended up being 70 components plus, that, including things like graphing, all inputs, buttons, tons of typography, layout, all over the place, and it was a lot of fun. Configuring it was a challenge, and we learned a couple things from this, and basically how to build not only a very complex design system, but a super simple one too. But we just wanted to make sure we had the right tools to build from scratch. Theming at scale needs strategy. It took us, I think, 2.5 years to build this thing. Not what I'm presenting to you, but this white label design system. And it was a massive undertaking between our design team, this company's design team, and then also the engineering team. So there are a few issues at scale we figured out. Universal configuration was needed, but we didn't really know how to do that because we didn't know what the clients were asking for. How much leeway was the top client giving the sub-clients in terms of configuration and customizability of their design system they're getting, or how their product's going to look. I mean, it has to be able to show all their brand colors, it has to be able to show all the logo work, typography, all that stuff that everyone asks for. But we couldn't give them everything, and we needed to figure out what we had to lock down. And so there's a system developed not only in code, but the process, like how you work with the design team and then how you work with the developers, all the conversations. We had at least 2 meetings a day with product. It was, well, fun. So one of the bigger things, colors changed, and often. What about custom fonts? And spacing was a non-negotiable. We did not want to get any variance to spacing. We didn't want any people to, the ability to customize any of those things. And with what we learned, distilled down into 3 main tenets of Ether, I'm going to go through them. Color. Color systems come from 2 collections. We found they were core variables and usage variables. Mapping colors sucks if you start off on the wrong foot, because changing color values affects so many different things in different ways, especially when you're tying them to usage. I'll go through that. So, create the color variables using direct color value definitions. For example, blue is equal to this hex value. The next step is to create color usage variables which map to the color variables. And they're easier to read. You see this. Primary button background is equal to blue. That allows for a lot of flexibility. Second one was a fun one, typography. You have to establish, there's 2 slides here, you have to establish clear, simple hierarchy and sizing. This is just a design tenet. And the Ether side is typography sizes should be based on the font. How do we do that?
Font family.
Oh, almost. It's part of that, but this is the cool stuff. And I'll show code examples at the end, but sizes are mathematically derived from a base scale and a modifier. The font size is set using the X unit. Not a pixel, not an M, not a rem. The X unit, which is the height of the lowercase x in the font that you select to display.
Wait a second.
Yeah.
This is a legit thing
It
in
is.
CSS?
Yes. It's a little known unit, and it is awesome. Yeah, it's just...
What's the kit I use on that?
It's supported across all browsers. It's just like this little hidden nugget
And
that
it's based on the size of the
Lowercase
character?
the lowercase x
That's interesting.
in any font. So you're going to get slight variances based on the font size. Or the font family that you select will dictate the spacing system throughout the rest of your design system. Ooh, that's fun. It also comes with one problem that we found recently. I had to open a new bug request or issue for Chrome on Android version 72, which does not calculate the X unit correctly, and they're working on it. So we do use Ether in production, and our latest client website looked great on everything except someone's like, hey, why are the fonts so huge on my phone? Like, all the testing we did, we could not replicate the issue until someone upgraded to Chrome 72 on Android Pie specifically. And yep, they're working on it.
So is that something you can work with Apple to transpile?
No, I actually got some traction on the issue itself with one of their QA engineers going through each and every build of Android Chrome all through 70. All the sub-builds and said it broke here at this one little build, and then tagged some guy that worked on it going, hey, this has something to do with something you touched, so this ticket's yours now. So I'm not crazy. Yeah, so it works everywhere except on that guy's phone. Spacing. Need to mention that this is also derived from font size, which would cause freakouts if the X unit was not properly calculated. Important note, spacing options should be limited and the available values should not be too similar. This is a design decision because if you provide too many options, you're going to also get too many variances on layout.
Yeah.
So values are few in number and unique in size. Too many choices for developer teams may lead to unintended layout variations, even slight ones. And just navigating through pages, just be like, don't want that. So what we do is generate spacing based on, well, it almost looks like the Fibonacci sequence, but this is also based on a specific example of using open sans inside Ether. These are the values we get. And these are customizable and configurable. They're not locked down, but this is a very opinionated way we have to build spacing systems. And a couple notes about Ether. A grid is not included. We want you to build your own. There's already grid systems out there, and we find that design teams and product teams are very opinionated about which grid they're using. So we don't want to prescribe a grid to them or just give them one we've already built. So we keep things simple. This is a starter kit. It's built to be published as an NPM package or integrated directly into a project. We've used it on both marketing and product systems at the same time with one package. Super nice. Uses styled components, so CSS and JS. We like it, but we also have a Sass version out there on the website. So it was our original version. We created a React version. And it can be as simple or as complex as needed. So that story I was telling at the beginning about having an infinitely themable design system can start with Ether, but this is also a starter kit for a simple design system. So I'll show you some code. So, demonstrating colors. Here is how we start with our color system. We get colors from a design team, and we spit them out as hex values. It's very simple. We like to keep as many different, like one core color, and then we usually go too light or too dark from that center. This is very manual. We're not generating these colors from anything. This is a design decision from my project. And these are the colors we chose just for ether as a starter. So red, Tiber, blue, green. All right, so from colors, you want to make color variables. So you're mapping a color value to behavior or usage. That way it's easy to read, and it's easy to change without affecting too many things at once. Because we've had, I think it came with like a header component for this design system, this massive one, where clients wanted dark versions, light versions, and to use a certain blue, but not their actual blue, just some customized blue, which will then break everything else because it's no longer on brand. So we're like, let's just put another abstraction layer, color variables, and boom, we've separated those concerns. It's pretty helpful. We like to also break them apart by, I guess we group them by semantic colors, typographic colors, layout, and anything else you can think of. Here I'm including buttons because buttons are very complex components and that there are so many versions of a button that why not just include it. Here's the fun stuff, fonts. Again, we're using style components. This is just a CSS wrapper. The CSS function just basically creates a nice string that style components can read, and you just type normal CSS. So it's just, if you're used to CSS, it's a wonderful environment to develop in. From fonts, we go to font sizes. This is the secret sauce. We have, basically, you set a desktop scale modifier, which is going to give you all the hierarchy variants that you want in a design system. So a header with 6 sizes that are just far enough apart to be unique, just like our spacing system, but it's all generated for you, but it's still customizable and configurable. So you can play with those numbers as much as you want. Again, if you change the font, those values may not work correctly. They may look really bad, so it's nice to go in there and finesse it as you change fonts or make selections. From there, we spit out little objects, font size object, different sizes, and these are also responsive. Typography is grouping all of that together. We have sizes and families, and then any other customizations on top of that. In this case, it's only line height. We like to keep it simple. Spacing system is a lot like the font size system, but here we also have cap heights of the base 0 font size. So this is some more X unit stuff. We like to play around with these numbers and
I see pixels.
other pixels. What comes out is a pixel. But the initial sizes that are generated, sometimes if you change the font, could cause other slight effects. It's kind of weird, but it was an experiment that was super fun to build. And an example of a component that comes with Ether, the paragraph component, implementing all of these things. So I guess I could start here. Basically, the CSS is being set by props, and we are providing all the possible different variances that a paragraph would have. So the sizes of small, medium, and large, all the colors that are available to it, and then we just spit out CSS at the bottom based on the props that are passed into it. So that's all the CSS, but there's a lot that leads to so much configurability. All right. Now, there's a lot that I'm not covering, but there are some tools that come with Ether. So there's pre-built components. We have the button, heading, paragraph, and spacer component, just as a nice little sampler of everything that Ether is building and working with. Media queries, it's a utility for generating media query CSS for style components. It's just a little helper file that spits out a CSS string for style components, but you just pass it a size. So you can just say media queries.small, and you'll get all the correct CSS for that. We have colors and color variables. So all color definitions and variables fonts, font sizes, and typography, and spacer sizes. All those are exported individually, so if you want to include this design system with a larger product that may not necessarily need design system elements, but brand colors or fonts and font sizes, you still have access to the information. That's it. Any questions? Yes?
How often will change the font size and then mess up all the configuration to go change everything?
Because it's when I say mess up, I mean in that on the design sense. I'm myself a designer. I work with a lot of designers, and they'd freak out if spacing was even slightly off when I changed the font. Not to mention that I changed the font in the first place. So usually I get direction from top down to use these fonts, and we're going to play with these spacing variables until we like it. So yeah.
Fonts don't change much.
Yes.
So another question is, in the scale of this project, what was probably the most challenging part of the project?
Oh gosh. Documenting it. So we found like
Contributors.
It generated. I use Style Guidist here. I don't use Storybook. If anyone's familiar with Storybook, I use something close to it called Style Guidist because it has a much nicer presentation of any documentation. So there, you might have seen in the code a bunch of strange comments. Like, let me find it. Let's go back to paragraph. Boom. So, like this guy here, which I kind of like. I don't like having to change my coding style just for documentation. But right now there are some limitations with how like I'm passing this paragraph sizes as an object keys that spits out an array of possible sizes. That should be picked up in documentation, but because I'm going through object keys and not just spitting them out as a literal array right there, it doesn't see them. It'll just say one of paragraph sizes. No one knows what that is, so I might as well make it easier for people. And I'll show you that in a sec, but that's it. Thank you very much. It's fun to show you this, fun to build it. And I would really like it if people were to check it out. Open pull request new components. I would like to add more components to it if you guys would like to see them. I think the only request we've had so far is more input components. So I'd probably like to add a form with some simple validation and here is the GitHub repo. I try to include as much documentation as possible, but I'm always open to new suggestions. That is that.
That's great. Yeah. So I've done a lot of design system work over the last few years, and the stuff that you talked about is all like the hard stuff for really spacing and all the sizing and typography and colors and all that kind of stuff. So I really appreciate all the thought.
You're welcome.
Really well done.
We'd rather share it than not, so
Yeah.
cool. All right, thanks.
Cool.